How about now? Let me know if I can be heard. Horrible sound. This is interesting. It's on. Is it okay now? I don't know. For some reason, I just unplugged it and plugged it back in. Yeah, this is the same one that I used yesterday. Great. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for my responsive audience. So the sound is primo now? Everything's good? Great, great. GP, I feel so bad. Your audio never seems to go the way you want. I can't hear. How about now? Wildcat drums. Can you hear it? Can you hear me now? Okay. Yes, great, great. No, that was just actually just I don't know, a little short. I unplugged it, plugged it back in. Life was good, and I actually did a private satsang for a group in Australia yesterday. Used exactly the same setup. I didn't even touch anything to make sure that the sound would be working today. So, as always, please say hello in the chat. Tell me where you are watching satsang from. It's always really very endearing to me to see people from around the world that are responding to this kind of an inquiry. And as I was mentioning before, when there was no sound, I've been pondering a lot the nature of the Bodhisattva. In the Buddhist tradition, there are two main lines of the tradition: the Hinayana and the Mahayana. The Hinayana was very much a part of the Buddhist teaching for many, many years, but it was not Buddha's primary focus. And the hero of the Hinayana is the Arhat, and the Arhat is one who seeks awakening, seeks to wake up, seeks to be enlightened, seeks to be free from birth and from death and rebirth. But in the Mahayana tradition, the Mahayana path, which Buddha clearly thought was better, Hinayana means lesser vehicle, Mahayana means greater vehicle, it was the Bodhisattva. And the Bodhisattva is one who seeks enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. There's not even so much of a self there that they're seeking their own liberation. They're seeking liberation for all beings. And I gravitate towards that. In my own history, my first encounter with awakening was the experience of original innocence. It was really an experience of a divine being. I did not understand any of the non-dual stuff at the time. I never even heard of it. The only time I'd ever even seen a Buddhist was in a National Geographic magazine, some article about Tibet or something, right? So I had no idea about any of this stuff. So I interpreted my experience from a metaphysical point of view, but one of, there was an infinite mind, an infinite God. I never believed in the God that was kind of the manipulator of history, kind of a glorified human being with jealousies and anger and that sort of thing. But there was still this sense of there being a God in myself. But while eventually I outgrew that, the energy behind it, the spirit behind it, that sense of unselfishness, of kindness, of working together, of helping others, of healing others, that sentiment of worship and devotion was very much alive. And as I grew and it came to be exposed to more and more things, that spirit never really left me. And so when I encountered the idea of the Bodhisattva, the one who seeks enlightenment for the benefit of all beings, it was so refreshing, right? Because I learned a lot of the non-dual stuff, and a lot of you have heard a lot of non-dual teachers. There's nobody here, there's no one to do anything, there's nothing to do, you don't exist, and that sort of thing. And in fact, it's true. It's not that it's not true. It's just not the whole truth. And it's lacking that energetic power of the spirit, that power of love, that power of unselfishness. That, the happier I get, the happier I want other people to be. It's really quite simple. So I just wanted to plant that seed in your minds as I'm waiting for the questions to start coming in. I would recommend anybody who is on this path, actually any path, even if your path is just personal development, even if your path is, I want to manifest a new car. If you're learning about law of attraction and metaphysics and manifestation and all that sort of stuff, broaden your horizons so that it's not just about you. The manifestation of abundance is the manifestation of abundance for all of us. Not just for a handful, not just for those who get it, but for everyone. The idea of manifesting a world that is equitable and fair and kind for all, to me, is an ambition worth pursuing. Whereas just, for me to benefit and my life to be more comfortable, that's okay, but you can feel the energetic difference, can't you? I really want to have enough money and good relationships and all of that kind of stuff, and it's got a great feel about it. But when you start thinking about it being universal, for everybody to enjoy that kind of peace and freedom and abundance and prosperity, it's got a completely different energy about it, doesn't it? It just kind of like magnifies the entire thing. And the side benefit of that, which is actually a primary benefit of that, is that there's less and less focus of attention on yourself, on your problems, on your issues. Everything becomes much more universal, and the end result is you simply naturally become less self-absorbed. You become less self-concerned. Eventually you cannot separate your own goodness, your own prosperity, your own benefit from the benefit and prosperity and abundance of others. You just can't do it. The two are completely intertwined. So let's go to the phones, Howard. So hello everyone. Now that the sound is working, let's see. Hi from Mexico. Hi Johanna. And by the way, Emiliano. Hi from Sweden. By the way, if you really enjoy these satsangs, please press the like button and share it as well. It's very, very helpful. Chris Skills says, good to join satsang from Liverpool, England. Hi, Chris. Ivalo, hi from Bulgaria. Hello. Before I am, hi G. Catherine in Ireland here. Hi, Catherine. Hello from Sweden, which is Barbaro. Sophie says, hello GP, with love from Hereford, England. I may need to grab my glasses. In fact, I know I will. I had them here a second ago. Excuse me. I need to be able to see. Hello from Wisconsin. Eli, I didn't know you were in Wisconsin. Grew up not far from there. Ursula, hello from Madeira, Poland. Sophie from Hereford, England. Eli says, hello. My question, sometimes when I'm talking, socializing, I'm like really good at it. Like I'm on ecstasy, pretty much. But sometimes I'm just like blocked or nervous around people. Why does that happen? Well, first off, I'd invite all of you to let go of the idea that somehow we're supposed to always be a certain way. That we're supposed to always be, I'm always good at socializing and talking your energy system is sensitive to an environment. If the environment is open and accepting and loving and not conflictive, you're probably going to feel open and talkative and engaged. But if the environment isn't, don't go thinking that there's something there's wrong with you, right? That you should be able to be the same way in every single environment. Instead, let your focus of attention just simply sink into your body and feel the sensations that are going on. Feel what you're actually feeling in that moment. what happens is you get in a situation, and I don't know what the cause is. Could be that there was just kind of an energy in the room. It could be that the people you were talking to were, just were not quite on the same wavelength as you. It could be, just something was going on with you that made it so that you're not completely, we're completely your normal, bubbly, engaging self. What in the moment, though, knowing why that's happening is useless because it won't do anything. So instead, just put your attention in your body and feel what you're feeling. Drop the idea that you're supposed to be any different than you actually are. You realize that all of our inner conflict, and therefore our suffering, arises from this idea that somehow we're supposed to be different than the way we are. That things are supposed to be happening differently than they are. That life has made a big mistake, and this moment is somehow out of sorts. There's something wrong with it. That's the false assumption that leads you to start questioning yourself. Why aren't I feeling like this? And it's like, forget the why. Just drop the why and go, oh, this is what I'm feeling right now. And really sink in and let yourself feel it. You'll find that when you do that, first off, any impulse you have where you have to be expressive and social will just drop away. You'll find yourself becoming extremely sensitive to the energy that's going on in the room. And then you will either just kind of, wander out of that room, or your presence, fully aware and fully conscious, will in fact shift the energy of the room. And you may find yourself socializing and talking. That's happened to me many times. Been somewhere, nothing, flat, right? And then all of a sudden, I'll just be there. I'll just be present, and all of a sudden the energy shifts, goes somewhere else. The energy is not the energy is not committed to being in any particular form for any particular amount of time. It's constantly shifting and changing. Your job is to simply be with that as it is happening in exactly the way it's happening. Then you show up as presence. You show up as really the awakened one in the room, and you become a kind of an energy center, not necessarily the life of the party, not the center of conversation. Just your presence brings out the most harmony that's possible under the circumstances. And so notice as I'm speaking, when you drop the idea that you're supposed to be some other way, how good that feels. I mean, it feels really great to realize that, oh, I don't have to be that way all the time. And you don't. Obviously, I speak for a living. I do this kinds of things. It's very easy for me to be in situations like that. But oftentimes I'll be at a situation, networking or something like that, and I'll be very, very quiet. Don't have much to say. It's not a problem. It's not a problem at all. It's just simply, just check in. Always check in with what you're feeling. Drop the story about what you should be feeling and just kind of embrace what you are feeling. And you will find that the energy just kind of opens up, and you will be experiencing things differently than you were. So, thanks, Eli. Carrie Brogan says hi from Australia. Hello, Carrie. Bogdan Resevic, did I say that correctly? GP, have you heard of Adi de Samraj? I'm watching videos of him where he says that point of view must be transcended. Thanks for answering. I've not heard of him, but what point of view needs to be transcended? Did I miss something from before? What point of view must be transcended? I can say this: all points of view must be transcended. All points of view are simply a point of view, right? And they're useful, they're handy. You're watching me now from a point of view. The mistake is that somehow we think the point of view is the true point of view, the only point of view, the right point of view. And it's not. It's just a point of view. If we realize that, we would end wars overnight. Because we're fighting over the mistake that our point of view is true and therefore must be imposed on everybody else. So all points of view must be transcended. Now that said, at various levels of development and growth, different points of view get presented until little by little it gets purer and purer, and the pointing is directly and more direct at that place that is not a point of view, that has transcended all ideas, all concepts, anything static, anything held on to, anything pushed away. That is the ultimate transcendent state, and it's indescribable. It is completely indescribable because it's not a point of view. It's the open, spacious awareness in which all points of view appear. When there's an identification with a particular point of view, we have created the ego, we have limited ourselves, we've put ourselves in a box, and we have created suffering. All points of view always appear on the screen of awareness, don't they? They don't exist outside of the awareness. It's simply a particular way in this moment in which you're looking at things. And that capacity doesn't mean you have no point of view. What it means is that you're not stuck in any point of view, and you can easily move between points of view, which means you have utter compassion because you can see all points of view. You don't have to doggedly hold on to something. You don't have to make someone wrong. You just realize that everyone is looking at the world through their own lens of perception. Once you realize that, you're not stuck in any lens. And so you can move freely between all lenses. That's what it means to transcend. It doesn't mean to go to this place where nothing matters, or there's nobody there, or none of this is happening, there are no opinions. It means that you move freely between, through everything that is involved with life. All of life is open to you now. None of it becomes an attachment, and none of it becomes an aversion. Is that clear, Bogdan? Does that help? Maybe if I know the specific point of view, maybe that's what you meant, that it was all points of view. So Kerwin says, I'm Kerwin. Hi, Kerwin. Kerwin Belt, nice to see you. Mark C. Hello, Mark C. Okay, take 2. Greetings from Vermont, USA. We're all connected, and that connection spells love. Yes, absolutely true. Absolutely true. Thank you. Chris Skills says, hello, GP. How to stay detached from our conditioning, like all the time detached? LOL. How long did it take you to transcend your conditioning and stop falling back into old habits? Well, it's a long time. It's a process that's ongoing. Remember, the conditioning doesn't stop, right? Everything is conditioned, right? This shirt is conditioning, right? Energy conditioned into a form is all of it, and the nervous system, the all of the things that make up the human body and a human life form, and all life forms, are all simply adaptable systems that condition themselves to best fit within the circumstances that will best guarantee that they're going to survive. That's what it does. The problem is our identification with the conditioning. We think the conditioning is who we are. Now, rather than looking at it as there a time frame by which I'm going to get free of all the conditioning, realize that you are free from the conditioning right now. You've never been conditioned. The conditioning is something that has happened to the body, to the mind, to the nervous system, and not to you. Right? If you were your conditioning, growth would be impossible, development, evolution, none of these things would be possible. So start from the premise that you're not your conditioning. And then make it like a game. Make it fun to catch yourself when you identify with the conditioning. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. It's like any game, right? The more you practice, the better you get at it. Start questioning the thoughts that you're having. What I say is, no thought is your thought. No thought, right? All thought is the robot. All thought is conditioned, because the mind is nothing more than conditioned thoughts. Thoughts in a particular form. So no thought is yours. The thought that says, I'm really sad, the thought that says, I'm really happy, the thought that says, I'm wonderful, the thought that says, I'm horrible. None of those are true. None of those are you. They are simply conditions of thought. If you believe that the I that thought is referring to is you, you have identified with your conditioning and you've just stepped into your prison. It's not you. It never was. So I always keep going back to the body. I notice that something happens in the environment, it triggers a cascade of thoughts and feelings and the like. But if I don't follow the thoughts, if I just stay with the feeling, the emotion or the sensation, I notice the habit of thought that wants to create a narrative to go with the whole thing. Remember, the reactive pattern, the conditioning of the nervous system happened before thought stepped in to try to explain it and rationalize and compensate for it. The nervous system was already doing its thing. So you can just completely withdraw your attention from the story about whatever the particular condition trigger is in that moment, and just be with the feeling. Just be with the sensation. And you'll find that if you do that the sensation is not static, it's constantly moving, and if you stay with it long enough, it's simply going to dissipate. Because if there's no story feeding it, then it has no energy to grow or sustain. Remember, the conditions are not self-sustained, right? The nervous system is simply always adapting to the environment. And when you even begin to attempt to seek to wake up, to seek to come to know yourself as you actually are, you've introduced a major league shift in the environment that the nervous system has to adapt to. And so it's going to react. There's going to be stuff happening. Let this be not a mission to get out of something, but a deep curiosity about the nature of reality and the nature of your own being, the real you, what you are actually really like. Let it be that. And then it won't be, oh my God, there's my conditioning, how do I get rid of it? It'll be, there's a conditioned pattern. Well, it's not me. Clearly it's not me. I'm looking at it. And thank God I'm seeing it. If I didn't see this conditioned pattern, I'd be identified with it. I would think it was me. Thank God I'm seeing it. The seeing is the undoing of it. There's no special gymnastics that have to be done. There's no special costumes that have to be worn. There's no special rites or rituals that have to be gone through. None of that's necessary. All you need to do is to see conditioning as conditioning and to become aware of the fact that you are looking at the conditioning from a place outside of it. If you were in it, you couldn't see it. You'd already be identified with it. The only reason you can see conditioning as conditioning is because you're not in it. You have stepped out of it. And that place from which the conditioning is being witnessed is not conditioned. And then let your attention increasingly go back to the place from which all of this is being viewed. For that place is not conditioned. And you can just check that for yourself. Does it react? No. It sees all reactions. Is it concerned? No. It is aware of all concerns. It's very, very subtle. And our habit of so readily identifying with the various patterns of reaction that come up with us blind us to the fact that all of it is being seen from another place. You are actually in that other place. It's just the thought that says, I'm stuck in this conditioning. Don't believe that thought. It's not telling you the truth. It's not because it's a liar. It's not clever enough to be a liar. It doesn't know. Your mind doesn't know the truth, so it can't tell it to you. The truth is not a thought you have. It's the place you're looking at, looking from. The truth is you. It is not a thought about you. It is you. It is the one having the experience. It is the one who is hearing my words right this moment. That consciousness that is hearing my words is it. That is your true position. It's the only position you've ever really been in. And all you need to do is become adept at distinguishing the perceptions of your own mind. That's a conditioned pattern, which means it's not me. It can't be me because I'm here looking at it. And if it was me, I couldn't look at it. And if it was me, if it wasn't here, I wouldn't be here. And if it went away, I would go away. So it's not me. It's just conditioning. And when you step into that place of the pure seeing, you have sucked all the energy out of the pattern. And so it cannot sustain itself. It'll go for a little bit, like when you unplug a fan, it continues, but eventually it slows down as long as it's not plugged back in again. Your job is don't plug back in. Simple as that. Does that help you, Chris? Is that doing it? Or Mark? Mark said that, right? No, that was Chris. Sorry, Mark was before that. Sarah says, "Hi, G. Sarah from France. Hi, Sarah. Still haven't figured this time thing. Yeah, well, we went on daylight savings time, so like things got off. It took me a lot of tries to be with the group in Australia yesterday because they're not on daylight savings time yet, nor is Europe. So Eli says, "Perfect, thank you." Eli, doo-da. Great, Eli. Waltz says, "Hello, GP. I wonder if what people term as awareness, spirituality, is another form of evading normal life, or is it the actual way of life? I'm in a dilemma between these two." Beautiful, beautiful question. Thank you. Anything can become an avoidance of life. Anything. Shopping, TV, the normal array of substances we have available to us. Sex, relationships, falling in love, anything can be a distraction from life. But the point of spiritual inquiry, spirituality, is not to get away from life. It's to experience life as it actually is. You'll never hear me saying, "Well, no, that's not right. You shouldn't be doing like that. You need to do this." You never hear me say that. I always say, what are you actually feeling? What is the actual reaction you have to some circumstance? Something is going on in your life. What are you doing? Are you avoiding it? Or are you grasping on it? Or are you simply being present with it? Are you allowing everything to be the way it is? That's what spirituality is. It's not a philosophy. It's not a set of behaviors. It's not a way of doing things so your life gets better. Right? All of that assumes that there's something wrong with your life in the first place. The genuine practice of spirituality is the search for truth. What is the truth? And I don't mean just something, way out there, out in the clouds kind of thing, with angels singing like. I'm talking about, what's the truth right here in this moment? What's the reality right here in this moment? And then I become really adept at distinguishing my ideas and thoughts and stories about this moment and the actual experience of the moment itself. For me, I always start that process when I teach it, and even for myself, by going into the body. What am I actually feeling in this moment? And then I'll notice this is what I'm feeling, and I'll also know that there may be some resistance. I don't want to feel that, or there may be some kind of attachment. Well, I like that. I want more of that. And I look beyond the attachment and the aversion, right to the actual feeling itself. How much more real can it get? If I'm not denying my feelings, if I'm not denying my life, I'm actually present with my life in all of it, then I'm not avoiding in the slightest. I'm not reframing. I'm not doing a spiritual bypass. I'm actually very, very present. It's tax time in the U.S. It's nobody's favorite time of year, right? There's always an aversion. There's a fear around that, right? So, what if you were to just approach it from the point of view that I'm going to feel everything that I'm feeling? I'm going to do what I clearly have to do, but I'm not going to try to suppress my feelings about it. I'm not trying to be happy about it. I'm not going to try to love the IRS. I'm simply going to let myself feel what I'm feeling as I'm doing what I need to do. So spirituality, awareness is that. It's not it is a transcendent state because it goes beyond everything, because everything appears to and in awareness. To realize that is to step into what your true nature is, that awareness. But that awareness doesn't reject anything. It doesn't push life away. The very nature of awareness is, I'm aware of it. That means aware of everything. And the deeper you go in spirituality, it's like walking into a room that you haven't been into in 10 years and turning on the light. You go, whoa, ooh. I mean, it's nasty, it's dusty, it's ugly, stuff is broken, there may be spiders and mice running around, right? You don't avoid that. Oh, there it is. But thank God the light's on, right? I can open the windows. I can clean it. I can clean the room now, right? Awareness, real spirituality is that. It's not an avoidance. I do processes with people that bring up some of the deepest, most traumatic wounds they've had in their life and heal them. If you're really present, which is what spirituality and awareness teach us to do, then you've created the perfect environment in which genuine healing can take place. Not a reframe, not just a reprogramming of the system, but a deep, penetrating insight into the nature of your being, and that brings with it a freedom, because you are capable of being with every last bit of your energy. There's no inner conflict to suppress or to keep traumas at bay. They will come up and become liberated. Because all that trauma is, all of our deepest wounds is energy that could not fulfill itself at the time. You can't run and you can't hide. You can't run and you can't fight, which is the classic fight or flight. If you can't do that, which happens very often as we're a child, a trauma gets created, which is a real energetic presence in the body that influences our thinking and our behaviors from that time forward, until the environment of safety, inner safety, becomes such that the environment now allows for that trauma to become released, that energy to get released. You don't need fighting and you don't need to flee, but that atmosphere of safety allows the whole energy system to dispose of the excess energy. So, yes, I have seen people use spirituality and make spirituality into yet another set of behaviors, right? Right? Oh, spiritual people are supposed to be like this. I've got to go to yoga class. I've got to meditate 3 times a day. I'm going to journal. I'm going to have a man bun, right? I wear certain kinds of clothes. That's nothing. It's a costume. It means nothing. Absolutely nothing. But a lot of people do that because they don't really understand that the behavioral shifts are superficial, and that's only imitating people whose behaviors emanate a certain quality, because they have gone beyond any kind of bypass. They're genuinely open and free and experiencing the kind of energetic freedom and health that other people want. And at first, people think, so if I act like that, then it'll be like, it's kind of imitative. Children do it, Young artists do it. We imitate greater artists until you kind of get the hang of it. But little by little, it becomes a very genuine inner inquiry that is simply not bounded by the psychological mind. The depth of spirituality is that you can see these things not from the point of view of just trying to make a better person, but from coming to understand the true nature of your being and the nature of consciousness itself. So I hope that helps you there. Waltz. Where are you from, Waltz? 150, the Troll Mick Trollerson. I have a master's degree in controlling the energy and screwing up the flow. Wow, that good? Well, at least it's not a doctorate, right? At least it's not your PhD. The drive to control is very deep in human beings. Because and why? Because we feel out of control. And why? Because we're identified with our conditioning. When we're identified with our conditioning, we do feel out of control. We feel out of sorts. We feel separated. We feel vulnerable. We feel, that is the end result of it. And so we're really trying to control things. We're trying to win approval. What we're really trying to do is just trying to be safe, because the essential split that made you believe that you are a separate person and not the actual boundless consciousness that you are, that feeling of being a separate person is in a constant state of vulnerability. And so control is one of the tools. And you look around, our whole world's built on control. Laws and regulations, and don't do this and don't do that, and it breaks into this rule, and it's just because of this deep primordial trauma that made us somewhere along the line forget and think that we're actually this body and therefore a separate, vulnerable human being. And it's not true. What I would suggest you do is that when the feeling, the impulse to control comes up, sit with it. Don't act on it, but don't suppress it. Oh my God, I really want to control this. And really probe deeply into it. Why am I trying to control it? What is it that I want to get? If I control it, what happens? What happens? Well, I'm gonna fall apart. I'm going to die. If you really keep probing, you're going to find some very, very deep stuff going on underneath. And you'll get through that wanting to control through the sense of vulnerability, and you get really right down to the heart that lies within every single one of us as human beings, and that is this fear of death. But if you do that, the fact that you're just sinking into it, not going along with it, not trying to control, but not suppressing the feeling, you will awaken a new power within you. You'll find that you don't need to control. You'll find that there is a sense inside of you that is not threatened, that doesn't feel separate, but it's underneath all of these other layers. And the only way to get through those is to be present with them. So whenever any kind of feeling like, I got to control this comes up, I say, stop, be with it. Become curious about it. Don't just try to get past it. Don't use a spiritual idea that says, well, I shouldn't be controlling. I can let go of control and that sort of stuff. Don't do that. Just be present with it. Don't identify with it. Because it says, I need to control that. Oh, okay, well, I'm not the I that it's referring to. There's just this feeling of being threatened, and so there's this impulse to control. So what's really happening? What's the threat? What's really going on here? That kind of inquiry will yield beautiful, beautiful results. I've just told it my battery is running low. Let me check here, make sure everything is okay. make sure that I'm able to keep up the good. I think, yes, I think I got it. I think it's charging. I'm actually, you know what? I may need to see if I can turn down the screen. No, can't do it now. So I hope that helps. You know, anytime any of our behaviors that seem to contradict our spiritual ambitions show up, don't resist. Don't push them away. Don't create an aversion towards them, because that's as self-destructive as an unhealthy addiction. You never get to freedom by trying to push things away. You get to freedom by becoming curious, but by coming to the understanding that you really are immortal. You are indestructible. Nothing can hurt you, especially your own feelings. Your own feelings cannot hurt you. So to really embrace that, and to be willing to be with whatever you're feeling without any attempt to change it, puts you in the position of actually acting from the point of view of pure awareness, because that's the nature of pure awareness. It is simply aware without a preference, without attachment, and without aversion. So whenever anything comes up, your job is to be with it as best you can, and let it be instructive. Right? We become spiritually strong not because all of the things that are pushing on us go away, but because they don't get us anymore. We're not intimidated anymore. When you're not intimidated anymore, then you're free, and then all of the things just begin to fall away. I'm going to check one more time to make sure that I'm... Hold on one second. Yes, still live. Good. Just dim the screen a little bit so I wouldn't run out of juice on my iPad. Let's see. Eli, zeros face 55.5. Not sure what that is. Johanna from Mexico. Hello, Johanna. I too had an unexplained pre-enlightened experience when I was much younger and spiritually uneducated. Often wonder if someone nearby was meditating intensely for the world. Would like to do that. Well, then you should. Remember, the world is not... the world is only what you think it is. That's simple. We all think that we're looking at exactly the same world. The world is nothing but a projection of your own mind, which means that it's how you see the world. Now, that doesn't mean you ignore cruelty. You ignore the barbarity. You ignore the incredible gulf between the haves and the have-nots. The greed and avarice that is running the world. We don't ignore that and push it outside. But I take it in. I take it in as the deep distress of humanity. And I watch very carefully how I view the world. If I see it as this thing that's a mess and screwed up and I want to get out of it, well, I'm contributing. That's the world I'm going to experience, a world that's a mess and horrible, and I want to get out of it. But if I see it instead as consciousness as a whole, consciousness that is struggling to find its equilibrium, striving on a global level, just the way you are as an individual. Not sure what's ego and what's the self, not sure what's spiritually true and what is nonsense. Dealing with my sense of fear, fear of death, fear of lack, fear of being alone. This is all happening all over the place. Your inner world and the outer world are completely and totally intertwined. So to meditate for the world is to simply, well, as I said in the beginning, the Bodhisattva practice, we seek enlightenment for the sake of all beings. So embracing every single being even those nasty mofos that, that are making war for profit, right? I mean, they're heaping enormous amounts of suffering on themselves through this, just this unfathomable ignorance. So if you are free even a bit of that, embrace the world. Okay? Recognize that the world doesn't really exist outside of your perception of it, and become a loving guardian of your perception of the world. Don't turn it into this horrible thing where horrible things are happening. See it as just as another element of your own consciousness that is requiring your conscious attention, your conscious presence, your awareness of it. And you'll get to a state of equanimity even about what's going on in the world. And that doesn't mean that you're approving of what's going on. What it means is you are bringing the light of real awareness, the light of real love, that is the energy that makes makes transformations take place, which makes eyes get opened, which makes the blind see and the lame walk. That energy brought to bear in your meditation will have a profound effect. And there's more and more of it going on. I'm just so grateful to see all of the different kinds of shows and podcasts and stuff going on, that it represents a completely different kind of consciousness than what seems to be dominating the world. Believe me, that is the small part. This growing awareness in all of us, even the desire to know harmony on a global level, is emerging, and it's much more powerful. And just like it does in us, as that insight grows and exposes within us the distortions and perversions of the egoic mind, exactly the same thing is happening in the world. The distortions and perversions of the egoic mind are just becoming made painfully obvious. And that's the real essence of the conflict and the barbarity and the cruelty that's going on in the world. So your meditations, receiving the world like a wounded child, will in fact create an energy that will go out to all four corners of the earth. Chris Gill says, we're trying to solve problems. I heard Mooji say, don't try to solve anything. You'll just go further down the rabbit hole. I like to see that in context, because I've watched Mooji a lot. I've been with him, and the way he answers can vary between the people that he's talking to. But when you try to analyze a problem from the point of view of the psychological mind, look at it just in terms of the history and what this happened here, and I had this event and then this took place, then you can get completely wrapped up in your shorts. As a matter of fact, people can go through years of psychoanalysis, and they'll know every aspect of how this problem got into place, where it originated, every detail, and they still got it, right? So now you have an extremely well-educated misery instead of an ignorant misery. So what I always do is water down. All problems arise from the same thing: an inner conflict, an inability to accept oneself as they are. They all originated from stuff in childhood, where we simply could not be who we are. We became alienated from ourselves. There it is. It's that simple. I don't bother trying to go into the problems. I just stay present with the energy, the feeling that's there, and it reveals itself. It shows everything it needs to do. Your job is to create this safe place. And the safest place is to know yourself as the pure awareness, which is the very nature of love. To know yourself as awareness, infinite, unbounded, limitless awareness, is to create the ultimate safe space within you. And in that ultimate safe space, all traumas, wounds, everything from this life and going as far back as we go, has the space in which it can emerge and be healed. Right? So I'm totally down with, I do not analyze. I used to. When I worked with people, I could figure out what we're doing and connect the dots and the like. But I found it wasn't 100% effective. But what was 100% effective was simply this loving presence with the energy, trusting the natural instincts and intelligence of the whole energy system to heal itself when the environment allowed. So now all I do is focus my attention on creating that environment of safety, and I let the energy do the rest. Sometimes it tells me what the originating event is, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it can give me the whole story of the trauma, sometimes it doesn't. And I don't care. Whatever. I'm there to facilitate. I'm there to provide a space in which healing can take place. And I don't need to know how it happens. I don't need to know any of the details. I am just there. And if the process of healing requires some kind of insight or revelation, then it'll happen. So I don't do past life regressions. I don't do any kind of I don't do hypnotherapy. If they have anything wrong, I don't have any issue with those. I don't do them simply because I'm not looking for myself to find the solution. I'm providing a environment in which the solution will come of its own being, because the nervous system, the energy system, the nature of life itself is infinitely intelligent, and it seeks healing. The only reason it's in a traumatic posture is because the environment, that's what it needed to do in order to be safe within that environment. So I don't need to fix this. I just need to give it a safe environment. It has a safe environment. Oh, I'm safe. It drops all the behaviors that have been problematic, and it steps into a whole new version of you, a whole new version of expression, a whole new level of self-expression. So don't analyze problems. Go to the feeling. Right? And when I say go to the feeling, not your thoughts about the feeling, which is where the problem lives, in our thoughts. Go away from the thought. Just go to the feeling. It's a feeling of distress on the system. Be with that feeling of distress. Make it safe for the distress to be felt. And this distress will transform. It will. It happens every single time. It never fails. You create a safe environment and people respond to it. I mean, how do you feel if you walk into an environment that feels kind of hostile or cold or critical, or people are always on, they're trying to impress each other or trying to get something from each other? And then what's it like when you walk in an environment where you're just received and everybody's open and caring and loving? I mean, in one instance, we're guarded, we're defensive, we're editing, we're watching what we're saying. In the other, we're just flowing. We're absolutely content. Your inner world's no different. It's just we've been habituated into being in an antagonistic role with ourselves, with our feelings, trying to push our feelings away, push away the ones we don't like, and grab and hold on to the ones that we do. And that's where the inner conflict creates. And so your system is kind of like, in a defensive posture. So you create a safe space. There's no need for defense. The ultimate safe space is unconditional love. There's no defense for unconditional love. And there's none needed. And of course, that's the atmosphere of healing. And in that atmosphere, there's not really a problem. There's a disruption in the flow of energy. And the providing of a safe environment allows the energy to restore itself to its natural, harmonious, healthy channels of flow. And that's all that's happening. It's not really even a problem. It just the message has to get to the energy. It's safe. Come on out and play. And they'll go, oh, great, thank you. And it's done. So I would agree with him. I would absolutely agree with him. There's no need to do a great analysis. There's no need to go into depth. Just find that place of self-acceptance and love, and your energy system will do the rest. Wildcat Drums. Love that name. GP, Dale here. Hi from Dorset, England. Big one for me. How do we deal with people at lower states of consciousness? Other egos, basically. For example, in the workplace environment. Big challenge for me. Okay. A big challenge for who? Right? I suspect that you're a little bit more advanced, adept at this kind of an inquiry. But the first thing I'm just going to say is that thought, this is a big challenge for me, is that trustworthy? Is that voice reliable? Is that the voice you should be listening to? The me it's referring to is a struggling, limited, separate sense of self that's trying to keep itself balanced in a world of low vibration beings and big egos, right? Which you'll find a lot of at work in corporations and the like. But what it's referring to is not you. It's referring to the image that you're holding of yourself. You don't have a challenge with anything because you are consciousness. Awareness doesn't have a challenge. Consciousness is not threatened by anything going on in the environment. So you don't have to deal with anybody. Right? The I have to deal with them is kind of, it's a reactive pattern, isn't it? It's just something comes up. It's a level of consciousness that is clearly still in some degree a state of ignorance, which means it does not know its true nature. It is still identified with its conditioning, and therefore you're feeling the energy of the conditioning. Right? You're feeling that. But that feeling that you're sensing and seeing is then creating a reaction which you are identifying with. Ah, this is unpleasant. I don't like this. I want to get away from this. How do I deal with that? That reaction is your conditioning. Now take a step even further back. Oh, that is a reaction as well. That's this ego reacting to that ego, and I am sitting back here behind the lens watching the whole thing. Yep, I was identified with it. I thought I had a problem. I thought I needed to fix something. I can see it is a reactive pattern, just like that. And that reactive pattern just keeps referring back to the same egoic identity. It needs to be better. I don't like this. I don't want this. I want this instead, right? Big step back, all the way back behind that lens of perception. And you'll see that all of that is just reaction as well. And then you just be with the feeling. There'll be a sensation going on in the body. There'll be a sense of constriction. And just say, it's okay. It's okay that you're here. Be really open and accepting and loving towards yourself. And now you have stepped out of the reactive pattern. You're no longer fulfilling it. And it could be there for a little bit longer, but if you consistently step out and just recognize that you are the awareness that's watching it, and it's not you, and the me that it's talking about is not you, then that will disappear. And you'll also find that with that disappearing, the lens gets clearer, and you're going to see them differently. Their energy will shift. They may move out of your life, or they may actually respond to this higher level of consciousness that you're representing. But now that consciousness is really pure. It isn't seeing the ignorance and then reacting to it or judging to it. It's seeing it and embracing it with compassion. I mean, look around, there's ignorance everywhere. Right? And the more mature you get, the more advanced you get, the more of it you're going to see. And some of it's not very pretty at all. Some of it is harmless ignorance, but there can also be malicious ignorance. But it's all ignorance. It's an ignorance of who we actually are. It's an ignorance of our true selves. It's an identification with the conditioning. Right? So your job is to not identify with the conditioning as it is emerging within you. That will clear the screen, and you'll begin to see clearly what you can do for others to help them wake up from their ignorance. That's what Christ meant when he said, you go to remove the sliver in your brother's eye, get the log out of your eye first. Then you'll see clearly how to remove it. But then you won't be reactive to it. It's fine. As a matter of fact, oftentimes you can just enjoy people even in their ignorance because you can see the qualities of the self in them. You'll see the self in them. You'll see the ignorance, but you'll also see the self. And you realize that the self is immanent and active and happening in every single one you meet, no matter how detestable they may appear. Yeah, the real essence of all of us is this pure, unconditional, loving awareness. Does that help you, my friend? Does it help you, Wildcat drums? Bogdan says, personal body-mind point of view. He had a huge following and practiced sadhana and darshan. Said that one's life should be devoted to God realization because of self-realization. Okay, so that was the question about that other fella and all needed to be transcended. I totally agree. The point, and I think, let me go back to find the original question. Bogdan. Yeah, GP, have you heard of Adi Da Samraj? I'm watching videos of him where he says that point of view must be transcended. Thank you for answering. And I asked what point of view specifically, and he said he had a huge following, the personal body-mind point of view. Yes, that must be transcended. You are not your body, you are not your mind, you are not your emotions. You are that which is aware of them. And to transcend means simply, I am not identified with them. It doesn't mean you get rid of them. It doesn't mean you get rid of thoughts. It doesn't mean you get rid of sensations. You get rid of the body. It doesn't mean you get rid of your history. It doesn't really get rid of your family. It doesn't mean any of that. It means you stop identifying with it. I'm not my conditioning. I'm not this body. That is the first identification that takes place. When the original fall, when children, we are this undifferentiated consciousness. There's no them and others. It's all just one. It's all just pure experience. But at some point, there's a sense of separation. There's a sense that there's mommy and me, and we're not the same. Right? Now, it's not really true. But this fall has to take place for us to actually enter into the sagehood, to consciously understand the nature of consciousness. This has to take place. And that sense of separation, the sense of that somehow I am a separate being, immediately identifies with the body as, this is what I am. This body is the parameter of what I am. Now, prior to that, there was no sense of self and other. There was no sense. My hand, your hand, yours, mine. None of that existed. But when that appeared, that original, and it is a false belief, it's a very deeply ingrained vasana that goes from lifetime to lifetime. When that first bubbles up, we identify with this body. I am this body. And now the destiny of the body, the future of the body, the gender, the size, the shape, all of it, we now think is me. And consciousness conforms itself, it conditions itself to believe itself to be this body. That point of view must be transcended. But the transcendence of it is not a getting rid of it. Right? The experience that the child had prior to that moment is exactly the same as the experience the child is having after that moment. But it's now being interpreted and filtered through this lens of the imaginary separate self. And that sense of separate self simply grows. It gets bigger. It gets many, many layers. And all we're doing in satsang is turning around and walking back to the undifferentiated consciousness, which is what is really here. And to do that requires a disidentification with the body-mind. I'm not my thoughts. I can't be my thoughts. My thoughts come and go. I watch them come and go. If I were my thoughts, when the thought went, I would go too. But I don't. So I'm not a thought. Which also means that no thought can possibly describe me. So I don't have to listen to any thoughts that are referring to me. Because they're not going to be me. They're just thoughts. They're part of the conditioning. They're just the idea. They're the thought that originated, that resolve around the idea that somehow I am this body. I'm not my emotions. Emotions come and go. I watch them come and go. If I was my emotions, when the emotions went, I'd go, but I'm still here. I'm substantively different than the emotions. Okay, great. What about the actual sensations in the body themselves? What about the body, this physical thing that I'm feeling? Well, I'm experiencing it, aren't I? This body has changed dramatically over the years. I feel the sensations. The sensations come and go, but I don't come and go. I've noticed my body changing. I didn't look like this 10 years ago. And I am aware of that. I'm not my body. I'm something else. And when this body goes, I'm not going to go. I'm still going to be here. Matter of fact, it's gone multiple times. Every 7 years, it completely turns over. Every second, 1 million cells are dying and 1 million more are being born. Every second. And I'm still here. So something is substantively different than even the body. Now what that is, that thing that is aware of everything else, I call consciousness or awareness. And that consciousness or awareness is what you are. And that is not the body. It is not in the body. It is not a product of the body. And that's where the big disagreement between non-dual spirituality and scientific materialism happens. The scientific materialism, everything is a product of the body. It's all the emergent property of the complexity of matter. That consciousness is just a function of matter. I completely and totally disagree. I am not this body, and the fellow you're pointing at, referring to, feels exactly the same way. And it does need to be transcended. You will notice that when you use that word I, when the word I and me and mine comes up, if you follow it, you're going to see that it is referring to the body, the thought of you, and not actually you. It is referring to something, not consciousness. It's referring to this bundle of memories and history and form and all of that. But not you. You are the one that is aware of it. And that's the practice, that's the sadhana, to become increasingly adept at seeing that. Increasingly notice how we identify with our conditioning, how we identify with the body, how we identify with our thoughts, with our beliefs, with our assumptions. We notice how that happens, and in the noticing, we see clearly, and the separation takes place. And you become far more self-aware, compassionate, and free. Because you are not really in bondage. You've never actually been in bondage. What has happened is simply consciousness conditioning itself in belief to be less than what it actually is. And so breaking down that false belief is the whole practice. Remember, you don't have to become free. You are realizing your freedom. This is why it's called self-realization, not self-attainment. Self-realization. It's an awakening. Oh, I've never been that. I just believed that I was that. And that's the magic. Speaking the devil, Bogdan says thank you. Then he says, GP, what do you think of magic? That's the magic. We like to call things magic of things we don't understand or illusions. You know, the magic tricks, right? And they are tricks. They're very elaborate. And they're very cool to watch, and people get very, very adept at it, but they're illusions. They're extremely adept at drawing your attention for a moment away from what they're doing. They know our attention is like a flashlight. And really good magicians are amazing to watch. They know that our attention is like a flashlight, and we only see what's in it. We don't see what's going on out here. So it's always about distracting you, getting your attention here, because they know you don't see anything going on over here when your attention is there. They do what they need to do over here. You look back and go, oh, magic. Now, what's really interesting is that up to a certain age, a child is not fooled. It will see exactly what the magician is doing, because their minds have not been conditioned to the point yet where they can be distracted. They're still seeing it all. They're still in an undifferentiated state. So their attention isn't drawn over here the way the adult mind is. So they're not fooled by the magic. I actually once I was watching a guy. He did close-up magic. It was some party. I just happened to be sitting next to him at the table, and he was doing some tricks. And because of the position I was sitting in, behind him, or right next to him, just he was sitting right next to me doing the trick, like, right in front of me. I caught it. I saw what he did. I saw the distraction, and I saw it. It was something with a matchbook, and he bent something over, and he did it really fast. There's a lot of manual dexterity. He did it really fast, but right before he did it, he drew everybody's attention over to something else, right? But just because the place I happened to be sitting, my attention didn't go there, and I just watched him do it. It was like amazing, absolutely amazing. It was actually even more fascinating being on the other side and being tricked, to watch how expertly and quickly and precisely that he did exactly what he needed to do. It was just downright amazing. So, then there's the miraculous, right? Which is really anything we just don't understand. We relegate it to miracle. I just love the idea of magic. I think life is magic. I mean, really, the fact that anything exists at all, the fact that we're sitting here having a conversation around the entire world, that's magic. Yeah, I know, there's electrons and there's knowledge and there's science and all of that sort of stuff, but it's magic. It's just magic. You Are Wealth says, wonderful GP, thank you. Sophie Austin says, okay. Rob Vickery, it takes one to know one. Kerwin says, do people mistake spirituality for religion? Well, yes. Let's not get hung up on the words. I will use the term religious sentiment. The best of religion is, Buddhism is regarded as a religion. It's probably more of a philosophy. It's a way of seeing things, but it's also a way of life. It's a way of regarding, out of my seeing, which is for me is pure spirituality. It's the direct perception of the truth. Out of that seeing inevitably arises certain kinds of behavior, kindness, compassion, a lack of desire to hurt anybody, a lack of desire to take advantage, an increased desire to share. All of those things naturally flow out of spirituality. You could call one spirituality, the other religion. You could call one the religious experience, which is the experience of oneness. I don't really get caught up in the words that much, although what the word religion has come to mean is codes of behavior that are enforced through fear of punishment, and belief systems that aggressively assert that theirs is the right perspective and the only right perspective, and you need to conform to them or you're going to suffer enormous consequences. And religion has kind of been reduced to that. It's a bit like yoga has 8 paths to yoga, and it's been reduced in the West to basically exercise. Right? Exercise for stress relief. I mean, it's a practice for preparing the nervous system for enlightenment. It's not about having a better butt, right? or having nice looking yoga pants. But everything tends to get diluted, and religion's no different. It's been diluted into literalism and fundamentalism. The same thing happened to meditation. Meditation is the pure experience of the non-dual, right in this moment. And it's been reduced to stress relief and, wellness programs that, help save companies money on their insurance programs. It's inevitable. To me, religion is the direct experience of the divine, the the emotional eruption that takes place when there is an experience of a direct seeing of your true nature. You can't just, it's not just a seeing that go, oh, isn't that interesting? It's a seeing that penetrates every cell in the body and transforms your life. You find the things you used to do you can't do anymore. You could call that religion, but it's not a religion being imposed from the outside through fear of consequences. It's a religion, a way of life that is emerging from the inside, that is a self-defined set of behaviors, where you don't have to be told to be good, you are good. You don't have to be told what being good is, you're it. You're doing it all the time. And so I hope that kind of sums it up for you. People often do mistake the obedient keeping of the rules with spirituality. That is not spirituality. Spirituality is the deep, courageous exploration into the true nature of being directly itself. Spirituality is wanting to know God. Religion, you could say, is wanting to know about God and following the rules. That's kind of what it's become. Let's see. Okay. Walt says, yes, it does. Thank you. I'm from India. Wonderful. Hi. Hi, Walt's from India. Robert Hill says, so for Westerners, reincarnation is a relief. but yogis are trying to break free. Yogis are trying to break free from it. Is life and duality such a hell that one should break the cycle? Okay, this is really, really important. We're only trying to break the cycle of illusion, of thinking something is real and true when it is only an appearance, right? Life does not stop, ever. The manifestation of life does not stop, ever. When this body no longer functions and just poof, goes back into the essential energy that it was before this particular form took place, you will remain. You will continue to be there. And the nature of consciousness is to manifest itself, to express itself. And so more bodies will come. To be free from the wheel of life and death is not necessarily to be free from more things appearing, more manifestations appearing. It's the freedom from the identification with the form. That's it. That's all you have to worry about. The rest of what happens after you die, and what does it mean to be free from life and death? That's all it means. What that actually looks like, I don't know. I'm not going to try to predict. All I know is that the impulse to identify with a form is no longer there. That's liberation, that's awakening, that's enlightenment. I am not that form. I am the formless awareness of that. That doesn't mean forms don't continue. They do, because it is the nature of consciousness to manifest itself in form. It's the nature of music to manifest itself in songs. To realize the reality of music doesn't end the appearance of music, right? The reality of dance doesn't end dancing, right? It liberates it. Because now it's like music saying, oh, I'm just one song. Identifying with this one song, this is the only, other form songs, that style sucks, that's terrible, this is the best song, this is the only song, every other song is wrong. That's really all we've done. A form has emerged, in the case of this body, I've identified with, consciousness, which am infinite, identified with this body, and therefore felt trapped in this body, and I would say reincarnation would definitely be a relief. right? A proposed heaven would be a relief. The suffering isn't coming from the body. The body's innocent. The suffering is coming from consciousness identified with it, thinking that is what I am. That belief creates the suffering. The belief creates the limitations. The belief creates the constrictions, not the body, the form itself appearing. It's innocent. It's free. It's unconcerned. It's not worried about incarnation or reincarnation. It's just energy in this moment, in this particular form. The water has been poured into this particular jar, so the water conforms to the jar. Pour the water out, it doesn't conform to that jar anymore. That's all this is. And that's why it doesn't take some great philosophy. It doesn't take dying and going to the next level. It doesn't take a series of lifetimes. It simply sees, oh, I'm not this body. I am conscious awareness. Therefore, I'm not limited by this body. This body can come and go. Fine, I'm unconcerned. I will not get born again because I will not identify with a body again. Will another body come? Yeah, probably. Will it look like this? Who knows? Will it be this world? Who knows? It's infinite, right? There's infinite possibilities. There's infinite potential for form, just like there's infinite potential for songs, right? Or for art, or for literature, or for dancing, or for relationship. There's infinite possibilities of it. The only thing we have to worry about, the only thing we have to concern ourselves about is our identification with it. Not what the form's going to be next time or where it came from. Who cares? Is it who I am? If the answer is no, then the forms can come and go and I can just enjoy them while they're here. I can say, oh, that was wonderful. I can, great. I can have some videos to remember it was a great form. That was really fun. And then the next one appears. And the infinite nature of the unfolding of consciousness happens. But consciousness is no longer identified with what it is being experienced. When you see the world as something out there separate from you that you have to deal with, you're in samsara. When you see it as simply the manifestation of consciousness that is just appearing and disappearing in front of you, you are in nirvana. It is the same experience. It is only the perception of it that shifts. You're seeing things as they are. That's the freedom. Right? So at that point, you don't reincarnate. That is, you don't go into the earth and come back and you're in another body. You're never in the body in the first place. You believe yourself to be confined to this body. And the belief is never true. So you're liberated not from being in a body. You're liberated from the belief that you are the body and that the body's destiny is your destiny. That's the freedom. That's the end of birth and rebirth. How it actually manifests, I don't know. I don't care. I'll be curious when I get there. Right now, I'm just enjoying this. I'm enjoying this moment. This is what's appearing right now. This is the experience I'm having right now. I'm not concerned about the experience I'm going to have, 100 years from now when this body dies. Probably not that long, but a while from now. hopefully I can hang out with you guys for a bit longer. Does that answer your question? It's subtle, isn't it? But this is a non-dual approach, and it's very, 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 very important. And not a lot of people are talking about that. There's just kind of these assumptions that go on about the nature of reincarnation and all of that. But all of them boil down to a sense of being a personal, limited, separate self. If that sense of being a personal, separate self isn't there, well, what does reincarnation mean? Well, I'm not reincarnating. Oh, it's not me coming in and out of bodies. It's bodies appearing and disappearing in me. Completely different relationship. Carrie says, I have a fear that the enlightened state doesn't experience manifestation, only potential due to transcending karma. Well, then what I just said about reincarnation is probably helpful to you, Carrie. Because it does experience manifestation. It's just not identified with it. God, it is so simple. That's all there is to it. Nothing changes except our identification with what we see. Our identification with the body goes away. Everything else is still here. The body's still here. Life is still here. People are still here. People are still falling in love, rainbows. I mean, it's all still here. Nothing's changed. It's only we're no longer identified with it. I no longer think I'm something I'm not, which leaves me completely free to experience all the juiciness of everything that's around. There's no more limitation on you, right? So you can put that fear to rest. Manifestation doesn't stop. It just doesn't become this blob of empty potential. You simply realize that emptiness is the nature of all things, and that the things are infinite and beautiful and innocent and fun and joyful. The things don't go away. Suddenly you become enlightenment doesn't mean everything disappears. The only thing that disappears is your illusion about who you are. You're no longer the thing you are seeing. You are the formless consciousness that is seeing. Everything that is seen is still there. It's just that you're not there anymore. The you thought you were isn't there anymore. Did I answer that in the previous question and just now for you, Carrie? It's so important. So don't fear the enlightened state. It's simply seeing things as they are. And of course, we should be afraid of seeing things as they're not. I mean, that's the illusion. I imagine things to be differently than they are. I suffer. Simple as that. Let's see. It's going on 90 minutes. All right. Curiousnessify. That's a great word. That's a great name. Hi, GP. There's an inner conflict in me about allowing least resistance versus intention, creating your own reality, making things happen. Any thoughts? It's very common. Curiousnessify. It's very, very common because we mistake allowing for passivity. When I'm talking about allowing, I'm not just saying you just sit on your butt, right? What I'm talking about is a shift in your relationship with yourself so that you're not fighting your own feelings. And that includes our desire to do things, I have a desire to do this, right? I go through the effort. There's lights around me. I've got this backdrop here. I've got a microphone and stuff hooked up. I take some time before to make sure things are working. I have other people that are helping me to do this, right? I'm actively engaged with life, but I'm not fighting it. I'm not trying to. I'm allowing everything that comes up to just come up and be there. So when the microphone doesn't work, it doesn't work. I wish it did. No problem. I pull out, plug it back in. There's other times I've had to change the battery. Sometimes things just don't work. Right now I'm checking on my on the time because the battery on this isn't. For some reason, it's not charging as fast as it needs to, right? So, but I just allow all of that to happen. Right? There's no argument with it, so I'm never upset. I'm not non-reactive to it, but I still have the intention. Right? I go to do things. Sometimes I try to do things and they fail miserably. Okay, that's fine. Well, the next thing, there's a natural flow of life that includes intention and it includes desire. So it's not what we're trying to get rid of intention. We're simply not attached to the intention. We recognize that our desires and our intentions are not personal. They're not something in mine. I have an intention and I have to make it happen. That's a grasping that sets off an inner conflict. But there's a very natural arising in all of us of stuff to do, right? I've never met anybody who woke up who just kind of sat there. Never. I've trained thousands of people in allowing, and just being in that state of allowing. They become more active, more responsive, because there's less and less energy and resistance and more simply in the flow. And so now an intention can arise, but when an intention arises, you don't see it as such a personal possession. I have this intention. It's just part of life arising, the way hair grows, right? Or the way you breathe, or your heart beats, or food digests. It's just a part of life. So it doesn't need to be resisted. It doesn't need to be clung to. You simply let it be there. I want to do this. Okay. And with equanimity, the effort can go into it, the things can happen, but you won't be attached to the result. You won't suffer if it doesn't happen, right? Every step will be just an interesting game. Everything will just be kind of playing with each other. And in fact, what looks like it's a failure in one moment will actually be the stepping stone for something even bigger in the next. You'll find there's a natural flow of life that is not personal. It is not just it's not a personal possession. It's really important to get, because when a sense of desire arises, we immediately go, because we're identified with the false sense of self. It's my desire. Somehow I've got to make it happen. Well, you didn't create it. You never created any desire. You didn't create an intention. Follow that intention back to its origin and tell me if you created it. You didn't. It just appeared. Oh, I'd like to. Boy, this would be great if. And it has some energy behind it, so it becomes an intention. But you didn't create it. It just happened. It just appeared. So your job is to simply receive it. Oh, this is interesting. Give it some space. Give it some energy. Give it some love. And see where it goes. You don't know where it's going to go. Now, when those things happen, when they come up, your mind jumps on it. It says, oh, great, intention, I want this to happen. And it starts laying out all sorts of things. The moment it starts doing that, you're no longer present with the intention, right? You have gone somewhere else. You've really cut yourself off from the flow of energy, and you're now in suffering. It's now becoming an egoic thing that I've got to make this happen. And it can be very subtle. Oh, this is great. I'm going to make this happen. Or it can be very aggressive, right? Just kind of wanting to take charge of it. Just put all that aside and just, there's the intent. Just be with that energy the way you'd be with your heartbeat. And just let it lead. Let it take you wherever it's going to take you, which could be someplace wonderful, or it could just go somewhere and just fizzle out. It's not important. Don't judge yourself if it lasts for a few minutes and then fizzles out. Or if it becomes, or obstacles seem to appear. Oh, there's an obstacle. Okay, well, what do I do with this? You take that in. Don't fight. Just don't fight. And so now you're doing both. You are allowing the space in which the intention of life can flower, can become whatever it needs to be. And your allowing is simply being able to hold that kind of space, being able to be with whatever comes up. Some frustration might come up or excitement might come up. You're just there with it. It's fine. It's going to fulfill itself. And so it's not I'm allowing or I'm intentional. It's this. It is this beautiful flow. There's a spaciousness. Things are happening in the spaciousness, but the spaciousness remains. Allowing is not the opposite of action. It is the space in which action takes place. Does that make sense to you? Hello from Monterey. Hello, Alessandra. Good to hear you. Let's see. Because David Smith says, I feel like spirituality makes me passive. If the ego is really that bad and useless, wouldn't evolution wipe it out? I feel like egotistic people have an advantage. Well, if you notice, evolution is wiping it out. It is this intense of the egoic mind that is creating all the destruction, that has pushed us to the verge of our own extinction. So it's happening. I'd kind of like us to survive. I'd like us to not just kind of go that way, but let the ego be dissolved and not us along with it. Now, that said, the ego is not what we think it is. It's not this horrible thing. It is simply a sense of self. And there's nothing wrong with the sense of self as long as you realize that it's just a sense of self and it's not actually who you are, that it's not consistent, that it's not always there, that it's constantly changing, that it's shifting. And so to seek stability in that which is not stable is simply not smart. But the ego is simply a sense of I. It's a sense of individuality, right? So you could say my ego is GP Walsh. Right? Now I know I'm not that. Right? That's just a name, it's an identity, it's a temporary thing that this form has, and it's fine. But if I think that's who actually I am, if that's what I am, and I hold to that doggedly, I will create tension. I will create conflict. I will hold on to a position. I will diminish and judge other positions. That's the problem. Not the sense that you have a sense of self. Of course, we all do. It's just part of the thing, a sense of a sense of being. But when it becomes dogged, when it becomes intense, when it becomes even violent, then it's bad times. But it's only because we've identified with the form. That's it. That's the only reason. We've identified with our form, and therefore we think that this form is what I am. And that's what gives, and then because that's what I am, and I'm limited, and I'm in danger, right? Now I'm not safe anymore. That's where it's all springing from. So you can call it the ego. It's only the sense of I. I mean, the word ego is taken on all sorts of meaning, right? The word got coined when Freud's writings got translated into English. In German, where it was originally written, everything he wrote, he simply used the word ich, which is the ICH, which is simply the German word for I. Right? For some reason, the translator didn't translate it as I. He translated it as ego, which is nothing but the Latin word for I. All the ego is referring to is a sense of self. Right? Now, if that sense of self is limited and small, then the sense of ego is going to feel defensive. It's going to feel cut off. It's going to feel in danger. It's going to become sectarian. It's going to become divisive. Right? But if that very sense of self is infinite, you have an infinite ego. Right? The ego now has no limits on it. You're talking about the sense I am. You're talking about God, the infinite sense of self. Right? It's the same thing, right? So it's not really that big a deal. It's not this, the devil, right, that has to be resisted at all cost. Again, it's just our ignorance. We don't understand what it actually is, and so we give it characteristics that it doesn't really possess. It's simply the sense of I. And is the sense of I that you have, is it limited? Is it stuck? Is it petty? Or is it expansive? Is it open? Is it allowing? Is it welcoming? Right? That's it. That's all. It's not that complicated. And in that case, then the ego becomes, just kind of merges with the fullness of consciousness. Right? And so it's no longer the sense of consciousness limited, it's simply the sense of unlimited consciousness, or you could call it the infinite ego. And it'd be okay. It would be a excuse me, perfectly good way to say it. You say spirituality makes me passive. There's some truth in that, only in that when we really begin to examine who we really are, and to become consciously aware of how much energy we've devoted into things that really weren't worth it, that really weren't us. And the moment as we begin to explore more and more who we actually are, you find that our desires change, the things we're interested change, the things that draw our attention are changing. We don't really have the same interests anymore. And of course, it's true. I mean, you're 10 years old, there's all sorts of things are really cool and you love to do, but 12, 13, 15 years They're all gone, right? You've outgrown them. We don't make a big deal out of that at the time because it happens very naturally. But when we outgrow things when we're adults, somehow we think it's supposed to be fixed. Oh, this is the way my life is supposed to be. And of course, because of thinking it's supposed to be fixed like that, we assume a certain level of permanence that is not really wise. And so all of a sudden, people start changing, our relationships start changing, we get confused, we don't know what to do. It's okay. This is supposed to happen. Right? You're not supposed to remain the same. You're not supposed to always feel the same way and like the same things. The stuff is... embrace the fact that for when a transition is taking place, the beginning of the transition is awkward. It's like puberty. It's awkward. I don't like what I used to... I'm not drawn. I don't like what I used to like, but I don't really know what I like yet. It's kind of like... you're like halfway between your shoe size. They're too tight. They don't feel right. They're too tight when it's more. But I put on the next size and it's too loose. That kind of thing is just going to continue to happen. It's okay. It's not a big deal. You're not really being passive. You're just in a transitional state. And transitional states can feel uncomfortable. It feels very uncomfortable to the nervous system. The nervous system wants everything to be the same all the time. And of course, it's impossible. It can't happen. We wouldn't want it to be that way. I mean, we all crave to have novelty and variety and diversity, right? But with that comes a certain degree of instability. And that's where simply being allowing, open, letting yourself feel whatever you feel, that will make the transition the shortest distance between 2 points, because you won't be resisting anything. You'll be allowing yourself to let go of what's no longer you, and allowing yourself to gently merge with what is the new you, which will become clearer and clearer. And that will develop, but that too will have a level of maturity and begin to decline. And then there'll be another period of discomfort where you make the next transition. This is the nature of life, and it's never going to change. So enjoy it as best you can. Hello from Monterey. David Smith, Muji cares about... I guess I have to put on money? I somehow don't trust him. Well, that was not my experience of him. But you're certainly allowed to feel that. I've never seen him really care anything about money, but that's my experience of him. But if you don't trust him, well then, go where your heart does feel that trust. You don't have to accept anybody. I don't care who they are. You don't have to accept Buddha. Right. I mean, in Zen they would say, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. Right? You don't have to accept anybody, David. There's nobody. Oh yeah, he's the right master. You have to listen with it. Forget that. That's fundamentalism. You go in the direction where you feel the most comfortable, where you feel drawn, and where you feel like you are being valued, and you are being fed the real truth, the truth that is actually nurturing you. I completely trust your capacity to discern for yourself what's best for you. So I completely support you. Digao Parciero, sorry if I butchered your name. Lovely name. In the last video you said about consciousness everything. I started meditating about that I am consciousness in everything. I don't know if it's coincidence, but everything starts working in my life. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. When you actually identify with what you are, you're harmonizing with life. And so yes, things are going to start working. Now, don't get attached to things working. Okay? The moment you get attached, now you've created an attachment which will inevitably make you want to push other things away. Allow this space of everything working to open up an inner space where you can go even deeper into who you actually are. Because it's not just about having your life work, it's about knowing the truth of yourself. Then life works perpetually. There's no conflict with anything that's happening. Right? You don't have a set of, oh, I really like it working this way, but I don't like it working that way. And so really, completely embrace this right now. Completely embrace the fact that it's working. Just don't say, if something doesn't work, don't say, oh God, what's wrong? I must have done something wrong. No, you didn't. Everything's fine, right? There's something is coming up that needs more of your loving attention. It needs more of your embrace. Open yourself even further to that. Let this be a perpetual opening of the heart until it's so open that there are no boundaries anymore. And you are the very nature of infinite love. I hope that helps you with this. It's really good though. And no, it's not a coincidence. It's a natural consequence of really coming to embrace yourself as you actually are. It's the open door for everything to flow. Just don't grab onto anything. Let it flow. Let it just keep flowing. It will. Chris Gill says, so you let things be as they are, GP, and just observe them without judgment. Yes, it's that simple. And that includes our desires, our wants, the things that we do. It's not a withdrawing from life. It's a withdrawing from conflict, which is different, right? Remington, hello, my man. How are you? IGP, no questions today. Just watching. You're the best. Shmuel Cohen, hi from Israel. Hi. How can we distinguish between awakening and a belief that